stay here and give her your full undivided attention because she's an amazing individual.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Crystal Chen, residing in Houston, Texas here. I have lived in the United States for over a decade now. But every time I see products like beautiful ornament flowers, cute little stuffed toys, dazzling Christmas lights, and elegant hand embroidery fashion at the retail store here, my mind is filled with sadness because those products evoke disturbing memory of my late 20s in China. Why I'm so upset? Allow me to share my story with you. It was 1999, exactly 23 years ago. My mother and I had practiced the meditation and spiritual practice Falun Gong for several years. Falun Gong's slow-moving exercises and moral teachings of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance were very popular back then. There are meditation sites in parks all throughout China. State media and even government agencies had endorsed Falun Gong for its moral teachings and the proven health benefits. According to the government's own estimate, 70 to 100 million people practice Falun Gong in China in 1999. However, in July 1999, the Chinese Communist Party, also known as the CCP, launched a massive and violent campaign to eradicate Falun Gong because they perceived Falun Gong's popularity and independence as a threat to the party's power and control. After that, our lives turned completely upside down simply because we refused to give up our belief in Falun Gong. I lost my job. Our home was searched and our property was confiscated. My mother and I were both arrested multiple times and detained in various detention and brainwashing centers. We were also sent to a forced labor camp without any trial, where we were forced to have slave labor for up to 17 hours each day. Room 212 at Tianhe Detention Center in Guangzhou City, China, was where I first experienced slave labor. The room was less than 300 square feet, yet there were about 40 female inmates inside. There was only one water faucet and one toilet pit at the corner of the room without a divider. And you had to ask for permission to use them every single time. We assembled a massive number of ornament flowers, Christmas lights. These appalling conditions just make us crazy because the guard, if you cannot produce the quota they assign to us. By the deadline, you will be punished. Beatings, deprivation of food and sleep, prolonging detention times, etc. The CCP guards even incentivize other inmates to abuse the Falun Gong practitioners in exchange for an early release from prison. I was later sentenced to 4.5 years of forced labor without a trial. At the labor camp, more sophisticated work was assigned to us. I was shocked to find out the toys we produced had Disney labels on them. Besides toys, we were also forced to make anything from hand embroidery, tops, jeans, shoes, purses, headdresses, to artificial funeral flowers and disposable chopsticks. Forced labor is only one of the tactics used to coerce Falun Gong practitioners into denouncing our faith. Many of us were subjected to the longest prison terms and harshest treatment just for sharing information about Falun Gong. Room 212 was also the place of my first and one of my worst experiences of torture. When I refused to stop practicing Falun Gong, the CCP guard brought 4 male detainees inside my cell. They pinned me to the concrete floor and began force-feeding me an all-salt mixture which could kill me. My body shook as I choked and couldn't breathe. I started losing consciousness. I thought I was going to die. On the brink of death, I realized there is nothing I could do but turn to my belief. So I prayed to be saved. Moments later, one of the 4 male detainees suddenly fainted on the floor, which interrupted the torture. I vomited salt and blood for the following days and could not eat or talk. A couple of weeks later, at the same detention center, a male Falun Gong practitioner died after being force-fed in the same way. When I was held at another detention center in Hebei province, the CCP guard handcuffed me to a radiator pipe with my toes barely touching the ground. I was left there for 3 days. A police chief grabbed my body while I was hanging from the pipe. At another detention center, the CCP guard threatened to send me to a different location where I could be raped. I was thankfully spared that horror, but other women were not. I saw many women tortured in a horrible way just because they practice Falun Gong. My mother was tortured at the same labor camp. She was shot by electric batons in her armpits and inner thighs for nearly 2 hours until she fainted. The CCP guard even poured water on her body to make the shock more intense. She never recovered. In August 2006, she died after her release because of the persecution she suffered in custody. She was only 63. During my years in the forced labor camp, I was also medically tested several times, including 2 blood tests. Only Falun Gong practitioners in the labor camp were systematically blood tested and medically examined. In 2006, allegations that Falun Gong practitioners were killed to harvest their organ were first disclosed in the international community. I realized I almost become one of those victims. The tests I received in the labor camp were necessary to check on the blood type compatibility between the organ source and the transplant recipient. In 2004, I was temporarily released from the labor camp due to my fatal physical condition caused by torture. Later, I managed to escape China and was finally accepted into the United States as a United Nations refugee. I am grateful for the people who helped me to settle in the United States. It has made me feel that despite the human rights abuses I witnessed and experienced in China, there is still so much hope and love in the world. As I walked in freedom, free of persecution, torture, and free to practice Falun Gong, I can just leave countless fellow practitioners behind. I ask you, kind and righteous Rotarians, to help stop the ongoing slave labor, persecution, and the heinous crime of the forced live organ harvesting in China. Thank you. Next, let me show you the illustration of the force-feeding torture I survived through. This is another one that I was speeding for up to 14 hours with my legs and arms tied up. Hanging to the pipe. Handcuffed. Thank you again for letting me share my story with all of you. Thank you.